제리 코넬리 연방하원의원은 변치 않는 한인들의 친구임을 자임하고 있습니다. 코넬리 연방하원의원은 최근 한인사회에 나와서 한인들의 권익을 신장하고 한미 협력 관계를 강화하면서 북한 문제도 해결하는 데 앞장설 것임을 약속했습니다. 이번 위클리 포커스 시간에는 제리 코넬리 연방하원의원을 만나봅니다. Do you support the co-naming university bill?
It's not an issue I've been involved in at the federal level. I know it's an issue in the General Assembly of Virginia, and I know it's a contentious issue for a number of my constituents, so absolutely worth looking at, but as I said, it hasn't risen to a level of federal concern.
What's your opinion? What's your position on
Well, I think there are a lot of other issues that I've been involved in, including I was just in Japan a few weeks ago, and I have been rather outspoken with Japanese officials about their treatment of Korea during World War II and their need to apologize for that behavior in a sincere fashion. And I've joined in the criticism of Japanese Prime Minister Abe for his visit to a very controversial shrine. That's a visit even the Emperor of Japan has not made. And it is very painful for the Korean survivors of World War II and for the Korean American community here. So I've been focused on those issues maybe more than on the geography issue that has, as I said, been an issue in the General Assembly in Richmond.
Co-sponsor of Partner with Korea Act to attract South Korean skilled workers. When do you expect the bill can be brought to House floor and it can be approved?
Anemic schedule that the Republican leadership of the House of Representatives has set for itself, I would hope it could come up this year. I'd like to see it. There's not that much on the agenda, and this would be a great issue to take up and pass on a bipartisan basis. So I'm hopeful we could do it this year. But I would love to. I don't control the agenda, the Republican majority controls the agenda, but I don't see why they couldn't bring up that legislation given how little they've scheduled legislatively so far.
Some members of Congress, especially Democratic congressmen, have a complaint about the Chorus FTA because U.S. trade deficit widened. They say that they oppose the TPP, Trans-Pacific Partnership. What's your opinion?
And I think it's working. The deficit may have grown slightly, but if you look at individual categories, U.S. exports of manufacturing goods, the availability of automobiles, U.S.-made automobiles on the Korean market, agricultural trade, frankly, they're all up, and in some cases rather dramatically. So the United States is benefiting from that free trade agreement, and I think we'll continue to benefit from it. With respect to the Trans-Pacific Partnership, I believe that's an important anchor in Asia and the Pacific, not only for U.S. leadership, but in melding an economic counterbalance to otherwise overwhelming Chinese influence. And I think the United States is a Pacific power and an Asian Rim power, and we have to exercise that leadership with our partners in the region. And so I think that's a good thing too.
Do you support the TPP and South Korean participation in TPP?
I think it's been good for the United States and good for our trading partners. And I think that Korea will benefit from both the U.S. free trade agreement with Korea and from the Trans-Pacific Partnership.
You emphasize now the HR 1771, North Korean Sanction Enforcement Bill. That bill is a Republican leadership by the Chairman Ed Royce, and there are 133 co-sponsors. But it is stalled nearly 1 year in the subcommittee. Why? And when move forward?
Again, the Republican leadership controls the scheduling of legislation and controls our agenda. So we'd have to actually ask them why they've bottled up that legislation, why they haven't acted on it. I think, frankly, given the the actions of the North Korean leader and his regime, I think that framework of sanctions legislation is needed now more than ever.
Do you think immigration reform can be done this election year? No.
And again, it's not going to be done. It can be done, of course it can, but it's not going to be done because the Republican House leadership and the rank and file in the Republican caucus oppose immigration reform. And that's very sad because in the Senate, we actually had Republicans and Democrats come together and pass a very meaningful immigration reform bill that I think would move us forward in the subject. So I'd like to see us act, if not on the Senate bill, on a comparable bill, but that's not going to happen this year. Speaker John Boehner, the Republican Speaker, has already said we're not going to act on it.
Will you join to urge President Obama to stop some deportation, non-criminal, undocumented, and to expand deferred action?
To be much more selective about the deportation policy and the number of deportations occurring. At one point in this administration, we were at the largest number of deportations in American history. Now, I'm sure some of them are justified, maybe many of them are, but there are also deportations that really are inhumane. They break up families. Somebody has not committed any kind of criminal behavior while being a guest in America. They're trying to make their lives better for themselves and the families. And I think that we need to distinguish among folks in those categories. Obviously, people engaged in criminal behavior, we want out of here. But people who are guilty of essentially trying to better their lives and that of their families, I think we have to treat in a different way and in a much more humane way than the system heretofore has done.
Why should we re-elect you? So send a message to Korean community.
I think that an honest examination of my almost 20 years now in political life here in Northern Virginia, both as a member of the Board of Supervisors and as chairman of the largest jurisdiction in metropolitan Washington, my friendship and support for the Korean community in good times and in bad has been quite consistent. And I count Korean Americans among my most loyal supporters, and I would hope they would continue to do that. You know, I've worked with business groups in the Korean community, including the Korean Dry Cleaners Association, in trying to protect small businesses from being poached by large predators. I have worked with the Korean community in times of tragedy, after the Virginia Tech tragedy, and I've worked with the faith community across the board in the Korean American community in trying to make sure that they had what they needed in terms of their houses of worship, and I've worshiped with them. And now that I'm in Congress, I'm proud of the fact that I am the co-chairman of the Korean caucus in the United States Congress. I've hosted, the Korean ambassador, Ambassador An. I'm proud to attend a joint session of the Congress with Korean President Park and listen carefully to her vision for a more peaceable Korean Peninsula. I've worked hard on sanctions legislation and human rights legislation to try to coach and coax the North Korean government into a much more peaceful and conciliatory posture. And I've worked to foster and deepen economic and trade ties between the United States and the Republic of South Korea. So I've got a long record, and I hope it speaks for itself in the Korean American community, and I hope I've earned their support for re-election as Congressman here in the 11th District of Virginia.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
God bless you.